Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening to today's episode of Tree Talk. We're up to episode 186, and for the first time in those episodes, we'll have a Munster Football final to look forward to. It's been 12 years in the waiting. Limerick versus Kerry this Saturday in Killarney. We'll be looking at that game at full, myself and Matt, and we'll also have a special guest, Conor Fitzgerald, who knows a thing or two about playing in Munster Football finals. We'll also look back on the under-20s, their, I suppose, devastating defeat to Kilkenny in the All-Ireland final. There's Camogie, there's leagues, and there's so many other things to go through. So stay tuned for all that and more.
The impression the game you get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
But not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomas O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kerry. Kerry leading the charge of the right brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high. He's put it over.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.
Matt, I suppose we've made an awful lot of intro over the last few years. We've used it, but that Shawnee Buckley point, that's the last Munster final, I'd imagine, Limerick Arena. It looked like Killarney to me.
It is, and it's a fantastic score, and it was got off one Tomas O'Shea, you know.
It wasn't.
And the O'Sheas and their uncle Paddy had a reputation for not conceding scores, you know.
Yeah, that shows the level that Shawnee Buckley was at in that Limerick team in 2010.
Absolutely. But, you know, I know we're going to be talking about it later with Conor Fitzgerald, but, you know, everybody's saying, and I was listening to the narrative from the radio this morning even, that it's more or less a foregone conclusion, you know. But Limerick have had a decent record against Kerry, and we'll be going into it in greater depth later, I know. And there is nothing in that I think that suggests that it's going to be a foregone conclusion. And if anything, Jack, and I don't want to preempt what we're going to be talking about later, but I don't think Limerick were ever in a better place going into a Munster final.
Yeah, no, we'll talk a bit about it at the moment before Conor comes in. He'll be joining us about half an hour into the pod. For anyone who wants to skip us talking, but like they don't come around very often, these Munster Football finals. Now with the current crew that's there, you'll be hopeful there'll be more of them. It's only the 14th. 2010 was my first one. I was a bit young in 3 and 4, and I was on holidays in 2009. But I still remember that day. It was one of those brilliant days, and Limerick football was in the crest of a wave at that time. Obviously Conor's team came through, and kind of they were there in 2000 with 21s and kind of stayed through an awful lot of that team. But a great buzz in Killarney, and look, it's home advantage for Kerry, but Killarney is a real footballing town, like, and probably isn't a better venue. And even though it's going against Limerick, like, it's one you'd really look forward to anyway.
Yeah, you'd say, you know, a trip any day to the tourist capital of Ireland is good, but you know, it let's face it, Jack, it's one of Gaelic football's capital and one of Gaelic football's shrines as well. So, you know, the two things marry in there. But like, I sort of don't buy into this thing like that. As I said, that it's a foregone conclusion. Limerick's record, Jack, in the Munster Football final at face value is paltry.
Yeah.
In that they have lost them. But like, would you believe it or not, Jack? I was at the 65 final.
I was going to ask, were you at that one, or was 91 the first one?
No, 1965. And Limerick were two goals up in the Gaelic grounds that day.
Do you remember it?
Just give a small bit of background to it. Limerick had been out of the Munster Senior Football Championship for a number of years.
Oh, yes.
And returned in 1965. I think I said this in the past in a recent podcast, and announced their re-arrival into the competition with a 2-5 to 6 points win over in Cork in Killarney in the semi-final. And the final was in the Gaelic grounds. and Limerick were 2-5 to 5 points up at half time. Now I know in the end that they lost 2-16 to 2-7, but Limerick put up a very, very creditable performance that day, because it was a real David and Goliath, clash. And then we fast forward to 91. When Limerick did everything but win the football match.
Yeah, I read an article during the weekend. It said confidence that was all that stopped Limerick in 91. I don't know, did it come from a member of the management or something? I suppose that is the thing that Kilkenny had for so long over everyone in hurling, that Kerry have that in Munster football now, that a lot of teams are beat before they go out there,
Yeah, but Limerick got to the gap, got to the door, were afraid to go over the threshold, and it was as simple as that. 23 points to 3-12. Limerick got off to a fantastic start that day, but with a couple of early goals, and really, really, really rattled Kerry. And then we move on to the noughties, and in 2003, again very close, 111 to 9 points. 2004, it actually went to a replay.
Yeah.
And in 2010, we went to Killarney again as no-hopers. Jack, this no-hopers thing bugs me, especially when Limerick are involved. And, Kerry were damn lucky to get a 117 to 114 victory 12 years ago.
Yeah, it was a phenomenal team, that 2010 team. I just vividly remember John Galvin.
I just add a little rider to it. The previous year, Limerick were in the Munster final, and they went down to Cork. Again, no-hopers. We were nearly pinching ourselves going down the road saying, why are we going here? 110 to 2-6 was the final score. A wonder goal from Daniel Goulding that won it.
Yeah, I was in America at that time, and it was before social media and all that.
This thing of Limerick in the Munster final, and I was listening to well-known pundits, national pundits who should know better, in my view, saying, look, it's Kerry, much is said. Where are Limerick going? I'm telling you, Limerick are going to make a match of it in Killarney on tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Limerick suit up well to Kerry, especially in defence. That's where Limerick are at their best. I just worry about they might struggle for scores a small bit, but because the defence kind of creates an awful lot and the attack finish it then, so they'll obviously have their hands full with the likes of Dave Clifford and Shawnee Shea and things. But we can delve more into that in a while. On Saturday, that's the starter for you at 3:00. There's obviously a fundraiser, a very good fundraiser in the Ballylanders J Club that evening. Shea for Dave, you're emceeing it. If you'd like to tell us more about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, Jack, it's a privilege to be asked to do this. It commemorates a really, really great GAA man. He was known as Big Dave, but I think that was a misnomer. I think he should have been called Big-Hearted Dave, because Dave was everybody's friend. His contribution to the GAA over the years, Jack, had been simply phenomenal. Now, he was Ballylanders representative on the county board for God knows how many years. He served with a number of Limerick teams as a selector and a member of the backroom team. He made an absolutely huge contribution to the GAA. It was unfortunately taken suddenly from us all 2 years ago. Now, he is the uncle of TJ Ryan and Donny Ryan and Davy Ryan that hurled with Gary Spillane. So now that the pandemic has passed, Gary Spillane and Ballylanders clubs have come together and are organising this function to remember Dave Walsh, and it's it's a catchy title to achieve for Dave, and first of all, it will mean that a number of people are going around very hairy at the moment. Some luminaries of the GA, including Jimmy Barry Murphy, Stephen Fox, Tony Ryan, going around with beards down to the ground nearly at this stage, but they'll be all coming off tomorrow night. But that is part of the fundraiser. But there's going to be a very interesting discussion, and that's where I will be involved in it, in trying to keep them apart, because the Anthony Daly podcast for the Irish Examiner has decamped to Ballylanders for tomorrow night. And you'll have Dalo, and Dalo's team it's very interesting. His team of Matt Landers and TJ Ryan. And I suppose it's fortuitous in some ways, in that the three of them represent the three counties that advanced in the Munster Championship.
Yeah.
And like if you can get enough, if you cannot get enough between those three, which I've no doubt you will, thrown in for good measure is Kerry's Tomás O'Shea. So it promises to be. Now the admission is free.
All right.
The admission is free. It's on at 8 o'clock, and basically what they're looking for sponsorship for growing their beards and all that sort of stuff. Oh, yes. And it promises to be a magnificent night, a great night, and it really commemorates a real stalwart, a fantastic Gael, a very, very generous, kind-hearted man, who was everybody's friend. And, this world and the GAA, Jack, is much poorer for his passing.
Yeah, it is definitely a great cause. I suppose for anyone that's listening to this now and is
now,
thinking,
Jack, also the Irish Heart Foundation are going to benefit from this, along with the two clubs.
That's brilliant. For anyone that's kind of out there half thinking of going, but want to see the Champions League final, will they be able to see that there as well?
They will. They will. All contingencies have been catered for, Jack, in that there will be a big screen to facilitate those that want to see the Champions League final.
Yeah, if Limerick and Liverpool lose on Saturday, I don't want anyone coming near me on Sunday. Just leave me alone. But hopefully we'll go for a double. I'd obviously rather see Limerick win, but a Liverpool double would be nice. For Saturday.
Jack, I'm paying no attention to your latter remark.
Look, everything stayed up, and you were as happy as I would be if Liverpool won the Champions League. So it could be a good season.
I'm happy with a certain element of shame that a club like Everton should be in the position that they're in. But that's a story for another day, and I would be very, very critical of how that football club is being run, even though I followed them all my life and will continue to follow them until I go to the grave. But, I don't get me on a rant on that, because it will take about 10 podcasts, Jack.
Yeah, I wouldn't get you talking about soccer now, and we have a Munster Football final to look forward to. But look, as we said, we've Conor coming on in a while, so we'll leave the football talk paused for about 20 minutes or so. We definitely won't. We have an awful lot more to talk about. Last Sunday, we were both in attendance in Thurles, Matt, for the All-Ireland Under-20 Championship. A defeat to Kilkenny, 19 points to 18. We were just kind of saying, look, it's fair to say Limerick never got going, really.
It is, Jack. It is. I, like yourself, we were together at it, we're bitterly disappointed. And, we were sort of waiting, if you like, for Limerick to get into their stride. Yeah. But it never happened. And I suppose that is down to a certain extent to the way the Kilkenny set out and the intensity that Kilkenny brought, particularly in the middle third.
Yeah, of course.
And the hooking and blocking from Kilkenny was absolutely phenomenal. They enjoyed a certain amount of dominance in the air, but their work rate, Jack, was just absolutely phenomenal. And I sometimes wonder, and I've been wondering since, if Patrick O'Donovan and Shane O'Brien had got anything like the supply that Billy Drennan got for Kilkenny, what result would we have had? because essentially Patrick O'Donovan, I think, put down a marker very, very early on with a couple of great points.
Definitely.
Shane O'Brien was absolutely starved. I think one chance he came his way and he put it over.
Yeah.
But it was so tight, so tense, and there was so little given in the middle third, that Limerick never really got into their stride, or never got into the way and the manner in which they played in the Munster Championship. And it was a Munster Championship, Jack. It was possibly, you couldn't win a better Munster Championship.
No.
Like you beat Clare, you beat Cork, you beat Waterford, you beat Tipperary. That's it. Grand Slam. But apart from that, you had the situation whereby Limerick showed measurable improvement game on game. And it was my view, and I think Dermot Mullins agreed with me on Sunday evening, that that sort of improvement, that little extra notch that we were hoping for in the final that would take him over the line against Kilkenny, it stalled. But Jack, it was down to the intensity that Kilkenny brought to the game. Now, from an entertainment point of view, Jack, you couldn't ask for better. Tit for tat. If you're a neutral, tit for tat. 19 points to 18 at the end. The outcome on a knife edge, the outcome in the melting pot, right up to the final whistle. But
level 14 times.
Level 14 times. But Jack, when it comes to the quality of hurling and the quality of fare that was on offer, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny. It was not a good game in that regard.
No, it wasn't. I think Ireland final day brings its own pressure, and when it's so close, you're more afraid to make a mistake than to try something. That's not to say the Limerick players didn't try, but Kilkenny just, at any age, they just seem to have this ability to kind of stifle attacks, kind of wear them down. As you said, Shane O'Brien got very little ball. Adam English got very little ball. There was a lot of players that just kind of couldn't get into the game, really. But I suppose that's the nature of All-Ireland finals, and I suppose we can't leave it without talking about that point or non-point. Conor Henley-Clark, I thought, was excellent every single game. He was brilliant in between the sticks. And I met Nicky Quaid there. I just walked past him, and he was definitely looking down saying, the future is bright and there's someone there to take my place if needs be. But I suppose it's very hard in real time to see did it go over or not. But when you look back now, it's clear, and a draw would have been a fair result.
It would if you isolate that particular incident. We sort of looked away, Jack, because we thought that Conor Henley-Clark had it brought down and done the business with it, and until we saw the white flag going up, Now we've seen the footage subsequently on television, and it would appear that it didn't go over. But Jack, this comes down to this comes down to a far more fundamental question altogether, and that's the question of Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Like if Hawkeye is installed in Thurles, was the All Ireland under 20 hurling final not worthy of having it in use?
Well, it's definitely worthy, but was it in use? Is the permanent
question?
That's
the question I'm posing. Does anybody know was it in use?
Yeah, I don't think so, and I think
was it in use for the senior game?
I didn't see the senior game. No, I was on the way home, but I think it was. I'm very sure it was in use. I don't know if they needed it, but it definitely would have been in use, I'd imagine. Yeah. Now, again, that comes down to the question of if Hawkeye's at one stadium, should it be at all stadiums? Would you have VAR at one stadium and not others?
That's a separate debate, Jack. But the point I'm making is Hawkeye is in the stadium.
Yeah.
This was an All-Ireland final, and why wasn't it used?
Like the week before, when the football was playing there, it was definitely in use. All you see is we didn't get a replay now of it, but we just saw it was Neil I don't know who kicked the ball that day. So obviously, like, it is in use this year. I have seen it there. You'd imagine for an All-Ireland final, it should have been in use. Whether it was, like, we're not going to know that. But Limerick still had loads of time. Like, it wasn't the
Oh yeah,
final.
that incident occurred in the 20th minute.
Yeah.
So there was a full 40 minutes of hurling plus whatever injury time there was. You had 45 minutes of hurling to redeem the situation. And Limerick got a number of chances, and they got a number of late chances, and it's no blame to anybody, because as Dermot Mullins described, they were difficult chances, and had one of them pulled off, it would have gone to extra time. And who knows an extra time, Jack?
Yeah.
You've seen in the past, and I've seen extra time takes on a life of their own.
Oh,
and
definitely,
more often than not, the team that gets the late equaliser, tis they drive on because tis they have the momentum. And there's the psychological thing with the team that has been caught at the death, to have to readjust again, thinking they had it won,
Yeah, I think we would have been headed for penalties if we got the extra time. But look, that's behind us. It's the first All-Ireland under 20, 21 All-Ireland final loss for Limerick. It's a hard one to take, but there's no doubt that we'll see a lot of these players. There's a good few of them that are underage again.
Yeah, the question you asked, Jack, was a good question there about what's the carryover for next year, and it's quite good. And like we're going to see the like of Shane O'Brien, we're going to see the like of Patrick O'Donovan, Adam English, Ethan Hurley. They'll all be around again next year, which augurs well.
Yeah, and obviously
I think Dermot, in reply to you, said that there were 7 in the starting team. John Kirby would be another one of them, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think
Evan O'Leary, I would imagine.
I think there was. Did I count out 6? I think from the starting team were definitely underage.
Yeah.
So look, it bodes well, and the older lads as well. We've seen 2 or 3 of them already in with the seniors. 4, I think, actually. You call Neil outside of that. We won't get into that because there's no point, but we might actually like it.
But there is a point, Jack.
It was tough. It was tough watching Cahill there, like with a Mayor Forna bib or whatever the bib is called now, bringing out Hurley's these teammates that he's been with for 7 or 8 years now. Like, it just on a human level, it was wrong.
Yeah, Jack. But I just wonder: have the people that made that decision, have they any sense of shame? Have they any feeling of shame?
Yeah, it's just
like I'm of the opinion, rightly or wrongly, Jack, that Drennan should have been on the Kilkenny senior panel. But they were probably. It'll be interesting to see if he's called up now. And
certainly do no harm.
What's he left back for the under 21s? But no managers, senior and under 20 managers should not be put into that situation. This is an absolute scandal.
Yeah. Look, there's no
shame on those that are responsible for it.
Yeah, and you'd hate to say it, but
Cork were in a similar situation with Kieran Joyce. Waterford with Cork Daly. This is disgraceful stuff, Jay. Like, David Clifford, have they played any under 21 football with his county?
Well, I think the rule could have been brought in for David Clifford because he never played 20s. Yeah. It was around that time it was brought in, and I suppose in hindsight it was done to protect the players, but it's been there long enough now to know that it's not really protecting players, it's punishing the best at that level. But
it's a phony response to burnout. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Like I go as far as saying this is something you'd find in Russia.
Yeah, it's definitely not the right way to do it. But look, we'll move on from that. We had Camogie last weekend. We've Camogie again this weekend. It was a disappointing day for Limerick Camogie, losing senior and junior. Seniors put up a good fight against the All-Ireland champions Galway, 4-11 to 1-7, but we're in it for a long time. The juniors, it was a heavy defeat to Armagh. Now you've spoke previously about that we probably shouldn't have Armagh in that competition after winning the intermediate league, but chance to rectify themselves again this weekend. Kilkenny, the seniors have Kilkenny and the juniors have Roscommon, but again, they're both away. But I suppose for the seniors, it's back-to-back away games. The juniors are right, we're home last week, but I suppose for the seniors starting off, Kilkenny again is just another indication of where they are. There is awfully down Antrim to come that'll show more of what they're about. But Kilkenny is pretty much a free hit.
It is, I suppose, Jack, and I'm not getting into the venues thing. I've been in it long enough in that space, but it was a creditable performance against Galway, because let's call a spade, Jack. I rate Galway as the Limerick of Camogie. They are an extremely good side. They are a very, very, very good side. And I think it was a creditable performance against Galway. Now, they were right there up till half time. Now, they had the breeze in the first half, but the concession maybe of 2 goals in that first half, gave them a bit of a mountain to climb in the second half. But they dug in there, and the one thing that the one real positive I would take out of it, Jack, is that they fought to the bitter end.
Yeah.
And John Lillis in his post-match interview was talking about it was the best performance of the year so far, and it was, and that in itself is very, very encouraging, and because we had said last week, we had made that very point actually, that we felt that in the game against Clare, and we have seen how well Clare have done since, was Limerick's best performance, and they had a similar good performance against Offaly, but were unlucky. And now Kilkenny is a huge ask. Going to Kilkenny is a huge ask, Jack. But again, I'd say being pragmatic about it and being honest about it. If John Lewis gets an improvement on the performance against Galway, if he can maintain that performance or improve on it, get a notch on it, like they would be going into a good place with back-to-back home games against Offaly and Down coming down the line. So it'll be all about performance.
You'd imagine if you put in a certain performance like you did against Galway, against the latter 3 teams, that you would get results and you start to build up a bit of momentum. So look,
Jack, I'm expecting results in the last 3 games. Now the game against Antrim is going to be no pushover now. It's a long that none of the games are going to be a pushover. Let's be honest. But I honestly think that if we can maintain the level of performance against Galway and maybe get another notch against Kilkenny, we will be in a good place when Offaly come to town in 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, it would be a bonus. I suppose before we move on from the Camogie, because I am expecting Conor soon, just on the fixtures, we talked a lot about the kind of Limerick having away fixtures back to back. The fact that Limerick are playing the same day as the footballers in a Munster final, very close to times, is definitely something that shouldn't be happening, I think.
Oh, not at all. No, not at all. And the sooner that these are the different arms of the GA come together under the one umbrella and eliminate that sort of stuff, the better. Like there's a lot of good work being done, preliminary good work being done in terms, and it was ticked off by Jackie Cahill and the ladies' football in these double fixtures and. Doubling them up with senior games and all that sort of thing, and like there's a double fixture in Killarney tomorrow, a double Munster final.
Yeah,
like you've Cork and Kerry in them, and the ladies' football final, and that is a very, very good idea. But you're right, Jack. Something has to be done about that sort of thing. But I would hope that when there is a coming together of the different arms of the GA, let's say. That's a lot of those things. A lot of those things will be ironed out. But Jack, before we go from that, I went out to see the juniors playing on Saturday. They were playing Armagh. They were playing a very, very strong Armagh team. Now you will recall, Jack, that Limerick and Armagh met in the All-Ireland Junior semi-final last year, and Armagh won by 2 points, but later went on to lose the All-Ireland final to Wexford. But Armagh were at full strength. They had much the same players. I recognise them from last year, and the same names, the same what have you. Limerick had only two, Valerie Shanahan and Leah Carroll, two of the squad from last year. But you must remember that Limerick was starting at number 35 because we have 34 senior players. Now, and what I'm concerned about is that we use 34 players in the senior league, and that's fine. That's fine, no problem. You've got to use the players, you've got to try them out, see what they're made of. But we had players that made cameo appearances of sometimes, in some cases, as little as 10 or 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
In one league game, and they're precluded from playing junior championship. Who in God's name is presiding over that?
Yeah,
they're prepared to let him sit idle for a year rather than let him get playing Camogie, which is the object of the association.
Yeah, it's a bit like the under-20s rule where you're kind of inhibiting players instead of like encouraging players to go out and play. It's just not right. And you'd wonder where these rules are coming from, and is there enough being said publicly against these rules to try and change them? Because a rule like that, or the rule like the Conor Fitzgerald rule, there's a lot of talk now, but as the winter months come and there's less hurling and camogie and football and ladies football being played, will they go under the radar and it'll only strike next year when we see a high profile player, miss out on a chance to play? Like, is now the time for action, essentially?
Yeah. If there's any good, Jack, to come out of the whole Cathal O'Neill debacle, it is that asinine rule will be removed.
Yeah. It just
and it's no blame to anybody in Limerick. They were only using the system, and it put John Kiley and Dermot Mullins in an unenviable position to have to make that decision, and no managers in the future should be asked to do it, and that thing should be removed off the books forthwith.
Yeah, it's definitely something that needs to be looked at and changed. Before we move on back into the senior football, we had some county league action during the week. I know we broke it out to games. We have the West League final is between Cairns and Newcastle West. The Southeast is between Galway and Ula, and then Clahon and Monaleen are meeting in the city final. I was at Ballysteen versus St. Kieran's. It was a brilliant game. You were at Galway and Ballylanders.
Another brilliant game that went to extra time, Jack.
Yeah, there was a real championship feel in Ballyhale the other night. I don't know if that was the same at your game, but it's really building now. Obviously, the Munster final will take precedence, and then next week the hurling equivalent. But the club championships are closing upon us.
They are, Jack, and I have been critical already of the GAA in the context of Cathal O'Neill nationally, and I've been critical of the Camogie Association. But Jack, I'm about to hand out kudos for a change. And I say well done to Limerick GAA, because I think they have got they've got a very good league system in place now.
Yeah, definitely.
I was at two games this week over the weekend. On Sunday evening, was a Saturday or Sunday evening, Jack. I was out at the 2021 senior hurling final, which doubled up between with a league match for 2022 between Kilmallock and Blackrock, and Blackrock won it by 3 points. And it was a fantastic game of hurling. And then I fast forward to Tuesday night, and with Ballylanders and Galway, and they needed extra time. This was full-blooded stuff, Jack, which is great. Which is absolutely fantastic. The leagues that we had heretofore, whilst they served their purpose, but they ended up as a bit of a charade. But now I think we have a very, very good league system, and there's a league there for everybody.
Yeah.
And like this thing of introducing semi-finals in the divisions, that's absolutely fantastic. In that it gives clubs that, the competitive and that championship bite of a knockout situation before they head into the championship proper.
Yeah, tis better.
Yeah,
than any.
I'm a 100% dedicated fan of the way that the leagues are structured now. Now, there is a downside, Jack, in that there was a number of walkovers.
Yeah,
which the organisers can do nothing about. But basically, Jack, and we were wondering last year about the leagues. No, was it a one-off buy-in after the end of the pandemic and the hunger that was out there for games? No, it has carried on this year, Jack. There's a good structure to the leagues, and like clubs are able to use the leagues. Like if you come out of your group, if you come in the top 4 in your group, you're going to get a knockout game. Possibly 2 knockout games, possibly 3 if you can get onto the county, or 4, get to the county final.
Yeah, it's definitely something we'll keep an eye on going forward, is the county leagues. Well, Conor is there in the waiting room, so we'll let him in as we go back to our Munster Football final preview. How are things, Conor?
Very well. How are you doing, lads?
Good, Conor. How are you?
Good now. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Looking forward to the weekend.
Yes.
Thanks very much for joining us. You know all about Munster finals, and you've played 2 in Killarney. Can you just kind of describe like the build up to Munster final? Because we were just saying Killarney is in football is nearly the equivalent of Crow Park. It's where you want to be playing these kind of finals.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks a million for having me on. We were, I suppose, when we were growing up anyway, my mum and dad, well, especially my dad, he used to bring us every Kerry Cork match, I'd say, that ever was played. For as long as I can remember. So going back to Killarney was always the trip for us, or going to Park but especially Killarney. And I suppose it's the most picturesque stadium in the country. There's always a savage atmosphere. There's always a bustling atmosphere. And it was a huge thing for us, massive. And obviously massive to get into a Munster final with the footballers in particular, because, there's, I suppose it wouldn't have been expected over the years to get into Munster finals. We wouldn't normally be Kerry Cork, or we wouldn't have been... I suppose wouldn't have been seen to be involved in it or whatever, too often. But the atmosphere was incredible. The whole build up to the Munster finals years ago was superb, but it was handled very, very well, I would say, by Liam Kearns. I suppose Limerick was starved of success both in football and hurling at the time when we were involved, and like the Limerick supporters really got behind us. Like, I remember 40,000 people being back in Killarney for the Munster final, and it was just. Never forget the noise that day running out on the pitch. Even it was extraordinary. It was like Limerick people just wanted to be heard and to be supporting their team. But it was unbelievable, and that was of course after the replay that we had in the Gaelic grounds, or the first day in the Gaelic grounds. Obviously, it was a replay back in Killarney, but like the Limerick people just went back in their droves to support us, and it was a savage atmosphere and a savage game, I suppose, with the wrong result, unfortunately, again. So. No, great memories, absolutely, and a great time. Very good time in our lives, I suppose, So
you got to 2 finals back to back, and I suppose Limerick as a whole got to 4 in 8 years, and Limerick have only won 1 Munster final. Is there any kind of tinge of a missed opportunity from your side that went close in 03 and obviously the replay in 04? Do you look back and think, what if?
Yeah, I definitely think that we left behind us. We have great opportunities to get over the line, and I suppose that's when you're playing teams of that tradition or teams of that quality. You just have to be so much better in everything. You need a lot of things, but you need to be obviously perform at your best in the day, at your very best. They often don't need to perform at their very best, and they can just get over the line. And then you need a bit of luck and a few breaks to go your way as well, I think, to make that or to get that big scalp, So that's you just need that little bit of shade of good fortune, I think, to get over the line. And it certainly wasn't for the want of preparation, physically, football wise, or mentally. Like we were definitely getting the very optimum out of ourselves, Whereas that's where we had to be at in order to even compete with the likes of those guys. But remember, I'd say Liam Kearns, he got every drop out of us anyway. That's for sure. To be competitive, but I never forget just the training we did was ferocious. I'd say we were never as good shape ever, as good a shape as we were in for those games, and physically and football wise and mentally definitely. But obviously, we just didn't get over the line, especially the day in Limerick. I think that was probably the real big opportunity for us. Played quite well, and obviously then the freeze of 45s that just were caught under the crossfire by Dara Shea. We're nearly still having nightmares about that, but that, like, it's just those breaks that you need, those extra couple of inches that would have, if kicked it over the bar, it was game over. So I suppose they're the small margins at that level of sport that goes for hurling or football or for anything nowadays. So there are very small margins when you're trying to get across the line, at that level. So.
Yeah, you talk about the physicality was one more there, and I suppose getting the optimum out of yourself and the team. Do you see similarities with Billy Lee's team that is largely the same as 2018 when they were in Division 4 and without a Munster win in ages, and just it seems to be a belief? Do you see similarities between yourselves and them?
Oh, definitely, yeah, definitely, and I think that they've done an incredible job. Billy has done an incredible job with since he started in the role. When you look at it, back in it to how many years, not that long ago, where he couldn't get guys to come onto the squad even, to train with them, or couldn't get them, which seems incredible now looking back in it, right? That people wouldn't want to play or wouldn't want to be involved with their county. But that was just the low end that Limerick football was at, and I think that the lads that were involved, Billy and Brian Bigley, in particular for those first few years, did an incredible job and steadying the ship, and gradually, I suppose, I suppose getting the belief back in the jersey and getting people wanting to be involved again. And they've done a superb job, and even obviously this year, the last couple of years, like every year they've kicked on. It's like they've rose their standards every year, and they've gone with it, and they've developed physically. Adrian O'Brien is doing a top job as well, and they're very good people involved with them. And Billy's is genuine a guy that you get involved in the team, and like everything is done for the right reasons. They're trying to do it right. The players are obviously buying in hugely into it, and you'd have to admire the likes of Ian Corbett and Donald Sullivan, these older statesmen of the team that have seen the lower days, and stuck with it, and have been a huge guiding, I suppose, guiding light for the younger guys at the front panel. And they have a great culture built up, which is fantastic, and there's certainly great similarities. So like this year has been superb, the way getting another promotion, and obviously within 2 months of championship matches. So it's been an incredible achievement, and fair play to them for doing what they're doing, so.
Yeah, the attacking flair that Kerry have now with the likes of Dave Clifford and Shawnee and Shane, these ye had the likes of Gooch and Declan Sullivan and Paul Galvin. How do you go about as a team preparing for lads like that could just turn it on in a moment with little to no space? Do you just have kind of accept that? Or?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's probably a very key part of all this is like the work rate that's involved up front, which is vital, because like giving them no easy opportunities, working the ball out, creating overlaps, because if you create an overlap with like a Kerry team that far out, it just spirals, knocks on, obviously, and they've got a serious forward line, serious forward line, and obviously when we were playing, there was your Gooch or Declan Sullivan or Galvin, your top quality operators, Donaghy, serious fellas. But all these guys need is a small bit of space to make it work. So definitely the work rate up front is vital in midfield, and obviously, like, in fairness, like Limerick have very, very good backs. They've done a very, very good job over the last couple of days against Clare and against Tipperary with proven forwards that have done it over the last couple of years. So obviously this is definitely a step up when you look at the quality of Clifford and Shawnee Shea, and they're just, you can't leave anything to chance. But I think that the work rate is a crucial part of it, and not making it easy, letting easy ball in inside, because if they can get that yard in front, if you're creating turnovers out the field, well, it makes it a lot easier for them to hit from outside in, so that's a crucial part. And then it puts a lot of pressure on the Limerick backs in if the ball is too easy coming in. So that's the real nub of it, like, for me, that if they are really working that hard outside, that they're putting under such pressure that they're going to prevent that easy ball coming in, and allowing the inside forward to get space, because as we all know, they don't need much space to do damage inside there, and that's for sure. So
yeah, and yourself as a forward, then, were you kind of just thinking to yourself, I mightn't get as many possessions, so when I do, I have to make the most of it, and it'll probably apply to the Limerick forwards this weekend?
Yeah, I suppose like anything in any forward or inside forward in particular, you have to, you could often be living off scraps or living off, it's hard to like you're taught it was Michael McCarthy or Thomas Sullivan you were marking, or and trying to get free even, was they were serious defenders of their time, and they obviously did a serious back. So getting free was a big thing, and getting that yard of space, and then obviously, but like we had a very good team when we were playing as well. When you look at the John Quans and the Galvins and Stephen Kelly, so like there was great guys who giving they see with a yard of space and they be able to get the ball into you, and quality footballers that we had at that time. So I think now, in fairness, Limerick have something very similar. Definitely, there's a lot of quality out the field and a lot of quality inside. But getting free is obviously from your marker is a huge thing, and getting that yard of space. But it becomes harder as you step up. In the Munster final, it's those yards of space aren't. They're not as free maybe as you might get in a league match, just you're trying to make every ball count, and when you win the ball, you're just trying to win the ball, make it count, and you know what I mean, just win it, kick a score, lay off the ball, take the best option. But they're the things that you got to focus in on and just make every ball count, that you're doing the right thing with the ball every time.
Yeah, and last one for me, Conor, before I throw you over to Matt there, I think Limerick's best trait is their attacking from deep. Is that something they should be trying to go from the start and try and put the Kerry forwards on the back foot, or is it kind of let's just hold them for a while and see how the game develops?
Yeah, no, like I suppose that's the way they play. I think that's what works very well for them. They're very good at doing it. So, like, you kind of have to go what you're used to doing, I think, right? And that works from that comes naturally to them. But still, at the same time, you need to have that. It's just you got to have belief in what you're doing, and I think they have a lot of belief in how they work the ball and how they work it from deep. They're very good at doing that. So they got to continue doing it because it works. It works for breaking down teams. It works for Limerick, so they got to continue doing that. And obviously, they just got to raise their standards or constantly improve their standards of what they're doing, because they're doing a lot of things very well, but they just need to. I suppose that's focus on the process that they've been doing all along, and if they can do that, I suppose with a high success rate, well, then it won't be breaking down out the field, or and that's where it happens. Turnovers in games like that are very, very important, but it works for Limerick. That's the way they play their game, and they're very good at it. So I would say it's something that they'd have to probably stick at. So,
Matt?
Conor, going back to 2000 and that unique double that he completed in 2000. And went so close to winning a unique All-Ireland double, actually. 6 or 7 of those, that football team made a quick transition, including yourself, to senior.
Yes.
How important was that in the success or the relative success of the teams that reached the Munster finals against Kerry? Because, like, you certainly brought a winning mentality to the squad and to the team.
Yeah, well, I suppose, Matt, we just got, like, for that year, we got in a great run with them. We had a great win against the Cork 21s down below in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, which was you never forget a win like that. So that was a huge win for us. Then led on to Munster final then against Waterford, and obviously that was huge. And then we played Westmeath above in Portlaoise, and remember, I don't know, was there 10 or 12,000 people at the match, but like about noise, I'd say it was definitely, for such a small crowd, I don't think you could make more noise at the match anyway. It was like a velodrome nearly, the noise, the intensity of that match. But getting over the line, because they were the previous All-Ireland winners, we'll say, the year before. So they were, we were getting a lot of belief from that match. And then obviously playing Tyrone then, getting into a match like that and playing a quality, like they obviously had a lot of guys that came through, the great Cormac McMillan, Lord Versingham, Stephen O'Neill, they had a really quality team, a lot of players that came through themselves. And I just think, Matt, we got a real, I suppose, a savage amount of belief in ourselves and as footballers, and saying, look, we can compete here and we can drive things on. And we definitely, I suppose, looked at raising the standards big time in ourselves, and we knew the level that we could get to when we played like Tyrone, and you obviously learn an awful lot in defeat, but we we had three or four very good wins that helped us believe in ourselves and said, look, we've a lot of quality footballers here, and I would definitely think that's what stood to us, and that was our backbone. Definitely, like we had a lot of quality guys: Stephen Lucy, Galvin, Jason Stokes. Real characters, but real guys you want in the trenches with you. You know what I mean? And I think that we learned an awful lot from that under-20 run, definitely match. So, and it definitely stood with us the whole way through, because it backbone probably the team that we had going forward for the next 7 or 8 years, 10 years. So we're just very lucky and very lucky to be in part of it, and we're very grateful for the great memories that we've had during that time when you look back at it now. But it was just amazing, really, for a Limerick football team to get to an All-Ireland final. When you're at the time, you don't think anything of it, and it's probably even a few years after you don't think anything of it. But when you look back at it now and say, "Geez, you're in an All-Ireland football final with Limerick footballers," it's just extraordinary stuff, really. So which was they were really a class outfit. The Tyrone lads were, they really were. So they kicked on and won a couple of All-Irelands after that thing as well. So they proved their worth after that as well. So they did, yeah.
But going into tomorrow's final, Conor, Limerick are generally just written off. Just seen as been making up numbers, and that's in common with any Munster. And I can go back to 1965.
Yes.
And that's in common with every Munster final that Limerick have appeared in football. Limerick have never rolled over in the Munster final. They've all been close. They've all been close Munster finals.
Absolutely, and I think, Matt, as well, like they'll have to have a lot of belief in beating Tipperary, going to Tipperary winning. It's not an easy place to go to. Going to Clare and winning, they've got a lot of confidence. They got promoted in Division 4. They performed very, very well. There's nothing to fear for Limerick going down to Killarney, and I know that Kerry have a savage team and a lot of quality. And I think, is it a 16-point handicap? Is that the betting? Is it on it? Which is extraordinary, really, on the one hand. But I suppose when you look at the Kerry team, you say, look what they did to Cork and how they kicked on in the last 15, 20 minutes in particular. But, if Limerick perform to their best of their ability, they'll ask a good few questions and a lot of questions of Kerry. And I think that, but I genuinely think they will, So I think that Limerick will have a plan going down there. And I think that Limerick have a lot of quality footballers in their team. So I think that these lads will relish what's ahead of them tomorrow, and they really should, because, there's absolutely no pressure on them. Go out and go at them, and enjoy, you know what I mean? Really go at them, So I think that there's, as I said, there's no pressure on them. They can just, kick off and go at it and go at them, you know what I mean? So I think the 16-point handicap is wrong, in my opinion, right? And I really, really believe that. I really do. I think it's way over the top. But I really think that these Limerick lads can perform to their very best. I think they'll give it a right crack, and I'd love it for them, because they deserve to, because, they've been nothing but fantastic over the last couple of years, but in particular this year, and they deserve to leave their best in the field, So please God.
Should they draw inspiration from Tipperary 2 years ago? You will recall, and Tipperary needed extra time to beat Limerick in the semi-final. Cork beat Kerry in a surprise.
That's
and
right.
Tipperary went down to Cork and won the Munster final.
That's right. Yeah, that's for sure. And I suppose Tipperary probably got a lot of belief, earlier on the year, similar enough with playing, league, and then playing Limerick and the way they won against Limerick, which is, was incredible. But Limerick would have to draw a lot of belief, and there's a lot of similarities between the two teams and their journeys, but I agree with you, Matt. They definitely have to, draw on the belief that, the way Tipperary went about their business, and, in fairness, they played a lot of quality football that day, and they raised their level again, didn't they, on that day, and they had a bit of luck as well. But you need to ride your luck, and you know what I mean. But definitely Limerick can learn a good few lessons from Tipperary, what they did a couple of years ago,
Yeah, that's the hope, that Limerick can finally get it done. 126 years is a long time. But Conor, thank you very much for joining us. Please God that Limerick can go that extra mile, and maybe on Sunday we can all go to Treehouse and watch the other provincial finals and say who's going to join Limerick as provincial champions in the quarterfinals. But again, a huge thank you to you, Conor, and please God Limerick can get the job done.
Thanks for having me on, lads. So look, wishing the Billy and the lads tomorrow all the very best, and just drive it on and go at them. So thanks a million, lads.
Thank you. That's the plan.
Thank you,
anyway.
Conor.
Matt, I suppose we'll keep going with that. With talking about that game. As I said, 186 years is a long time, and I suppose it was 108 when Conor's team were there. Like this has been going on for a long time, but records are there to be broken.
Of course, they're there to be broken, and of course they're there to be broken. Clare broke the record in 1992 when Francis McInerney, led a Clare team that were dubbed no hopers into a Munster final against Kerry in the Gaelic grounds, and won it. And Tipperary were in a similar position 2 years ago, and that's why I asked the question: can we draw inspiration from them? Because, like Tipperary, Cork had beaten Kerry, and that's the ultimate credentials that you can have going into a Munster final, to beat Kerry in the semi-final. Let's call a spade a spade. And Tipperary they had the belief. They had the belief that they could go and do it. They went down in the bloody Sunday jerseys, and they drew inspiration. But you drawing inspiration is one thing, but you actually have to have that belief, and they had the belief that they could end 85 years without a Munster title, and they did it. And I think that's the blueprint, for Limerick. But Conor touched on it there, Jack, and it cannot be said often enough, nor it cannot be emphasized enough, the job that Billy Lee has done. It's just simply phenomenal. Like, you'd run out of adjectives for it, because, and Conor spoke about he coming from a very low base. 2018, Jack, Limerick drew with London in the league in Division 4, beat Waterford. They picked up 3 points. That was the sum total. And here we are, 4 years down the road. Limerick have won Division 4, won the McGrath Cup, are being promoted from Division 3, and are now through to a Munster final. It's a phenomenal turnabout. And there are a number of players that have been through all that, we're talking about the like of Dunlus, Sean O'Dea has been through it all, Keane Sheehan has been through most of it, Ian Corbett, Dara Tracy. The lads are there that, they have seen both sides of the coin, and that will be a motivating. Peter Nash has been around. That is going to be a motivating factor for him. And I did mention when we spoke earlier on about it, for the reasons I've just outlined, that Limerick are in a good place going into the final, Jack. They're in a good place in that they have cultivated that winning mentality, and we've spoken about it in this medium, that how they have responded in the backs to the wall situation, which they have responded very, very well. And, at the risk of being repetitive, you had having to go to Sligo to get promoted from Division 4, having to go to Ockram to avoid going into a relegation playoff, having to go to Laois and beat Fermanagh in the concluding stages of this year's championship, even to get to the Munster final, Jack. Having to go to Ennis and then go to Tipperary. And then you had this whole thing, like we were 7 years without a championship at one stage. Now we've 7 years without a championship win. Now we've 2 championship wins in 1 year. We have reached for what for Limerick football is the Holy Grail, and now is a chance to grasp it. Yeah, and this whole thing about 16 points and all that sort of thing that that's been peddled out there, I think Limerick will have news for all that. They'll have an answer for all that, and Limerick are coming. They're coming from a good place, as I said, for those reasons. Plus the fact, Jack, there's another factor. And it has been shown in both championship games to date, in that, from a very, very low base, when up to 50 players refuse to commit themselves to play with Limerick or to train with Limerick or be involved with the Limerick football team, Billy Lee has built a squad, and he has people to come off the bench to make a difference. And that will be important.
Yeah, it'll definitely be important. I suppose, would you start Robbie Burke or something is a question a lot of people have said to me. We'll know the team tonight at 8 o'clock on Friday at 8. But I suppose Kerry are 16-point favourites, and it's disrespectful, I suppose, in one way, but the bookies are rarely wrong, and that's just the way it works. Like, obviously we want to see Limerick win, and we will give them every chance of winning, but what is a positive outcome for Limerick if Kerry win,
A close game, Jack, is obvious, and to see measurable improvement going on into the All-Ireland qualifiers, and Limerick will be well placed irrespective of the result going into the qualifiers, because Billy has built it up in that way. I think his main message is that we're going to the Munster final, we're going to play in the Munster final, we're going to learn from the Munster final, we're going to see where it takes us.
Yeah,
I think it's ideal preparation for his players. He's not heightening the expectation. He's not heightening the pressure on the lads. I think he's got it spot on in that one as well.
Yeah, I suppose it's nice that there is that game there, regardless of what happens on Saturday, whether they win and they're into an All-Ireland quarterfinal or they're just into the qualifiers, just to see how this team can go on, because obviously in 2020 you would have loved to have seen them after the Tipperary game, how they would have responded the following year against Cork in the Gaelic Rounds, with Donny O'Sullivan going off very early with that injury and how that panned out. That regardless of outcome, we'll see how this Limerick team can move on. And again, it's a bit like a free hit. No one is expecting anything from Limerick. You'd be foolish not to expect anything from them, really, because they've shown in the last few years that when the chips are down, they're more than well able to respond. But there is that caveat that regardless what happens, their season will continue.
It will, and it's hugely important, Jack, in the context of promotion, that Billy gets as many chances as possible to benchmark his team against teams of the first and second divisions. Because let's face it, and let's be honest, when you go into the league, Division 2 of the league in 2023, it'll be all about survival and consolidation first. Because it's welcome to the big time with the Dubs
in McNeville Park.
Yes. Yeah. All this sort of thing. But, it's very, very important. And that's why it was a significant win in Ennis, in that it gave you a ticket to the Munster semi-final. But more so, it gave Billy an opportunity to benchmark his team against a seasoned Division 2 team, because Clare have been in Division 2 for 6 years, Jack.
Yeah.
And they're seasoned in Tier 2. So that was an opportunity, and it was the first real chance. Now, Saturday is going to be the next chance to see how they can really mix it with the big boys. And, of course, the same will occur when they face into the qualifiers, because it'll be a Division 1 or Division 2 side. So, it's terribly important that the season continues, whether as Munster champions or as Munster runners-up.
Yeah.
And you notice I'm not discounting the former.
No, you couldn't rule it out. Look, as we said, Conor's teams were written off. Teams in 9 and 10 were written off, and when so close. And this team seems to have that inner belief that whatever scenario, whether it's penalties or you're going to Turles or whatever the case may be, that you can get the job done. It is interesting. The Kerry's attack is definitely the best attack in Ireland, but that's their key strength. And Limerick's defence, I think, is their strength. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out. David Clifford, and you say Cian Lynch is the greatest hurler of all time. David Clifford is well on his way to becoming the best footballer of all time.
Yeah, I agree, but possibly has a small bit of ground to make up on the gooch, you know. But
He does. But what I'm saying is, we saw Brian Fanning do a brilliant job on Conor Sweeney. Sean O'Dea did a similarly good job on Sam Mulroy in Croke Park, and I think Mike Donovan is probably physically the closest we have to Clifford in that full back line. Now, that's not to say Paul Maher won't be back there or Jim Liston or someone, but if you were manager, what would you do with Dave Clifford? Which of those boys would you pick, or do you pick a couple of them?
You know, the dilemma facing Billy, you know, obviously he'll have to be man-marked, but how many changes do you make in your defence to man-mark him?
Well, to be fair to Clifford now, he probably won't roam. So you know he's probably going to be... He's not going to go outside his own 45. He probably won't go further than the width of the net, like, because he doesn't need to go much further, because if the ball is near him, he'll win it. He's just a very strong man. But Clifford needs minding. His brother needs minding. He's more of a wonder.
Hey, you just took the word out of my mouth now. If David doesn't wonder, the other fella does, you know.
That's the thing with Kerry, and it's like Limerick in the hurling. They have so many weapons that you can quite in one or two.
Yeah, and you've Shawnee O'Shea, as you said, and like, you know, it gives you a sense of how formidable Kerry are when you see a situation whereby Paul Guinea is on a knife edge as to whether he'll be on the team or not.
Yeah, and then obviously if Paul Guinea is starting, that means Tony Brosnan isn't starting. So I mean, like, you know, that's the standard you're dealing with. And
if Paul Guinea comes on, he'll be fired up to high heavens because he wasn't on from the start. So,
yeah,
you know,
what I'd like to see happening, and I don't know how.
If you look at it, all the trumps are in Kerry's hands.
Yeah,
you know, but I'm hopeful, Jack. I'm an optimist.
Yeah, what I'd love to see now is if it's Brian Donovan, because he's probably with Keane Sheehan, he's probably the most athletic player on the team. That if he's marking Clifford like he marked Mulroy, that he goes on a run at the start and see does Clifford follow. And if you could bang a goal like he did against Clare, and you're putting that in their mind, that's the ideal scenario. But I don't know if that'll come to fruition. But I think Limerick have the defence to hold Kerry to a reasonable score. I think scores will be hard to come by, but I think 16 points is disrespectful to this team. I think they're much better than that. Cork were 12 points, and I think Limerick would beat this Cork team more often than not if they played each other. Before we get into a prediction for Saturday,
if Billy if Billy wants to fire up his team, just nail that up on the dressing room walls. You know, that's legendary as a legendary tactic, and you know where counties are written off.
Yeah. Before we get into the predictions of that game on Saturday, there's qualifiers on. Or are they next week? Is the qualifiers the following week? I think
the first round is on this week.
The Clare and Cork game, or is that the
the first round of the Talton Cup is on this week.
Yeah, sure. Look, we've gone from that. we missed out on that.
But there are some very interesting games in the qualifiers, and you must remember, if we're Limerick to lose, they'll be playing one of the winners of the qualifiers, like.
I might get you to call all those games now, Matt, because next week we'll probably be more focused on looking back on the Munster final and obviously looking forward to the hurling. So the 4 provincial finals, well, the 3 other ones, Galway and Roscommon.
I think Galway. No,
yeah. Roscommon
a lot of the punditry are going for Roscommon, but I think Galway will have learned a lot from the Division 2 final, which they lost to Roscommon.
Yeah,
I think it'll motivate them, and they have home venue, even though it's not too long ago since Roscommon won a Connacht final in Pearse Stadium. But I'm going with Galway because something about them that I think it's Galway, Jack.
Yeah, I edge towards Galway, but Roscommon have beaten them twice this year, and as you said in that Connacht final a few years back, so they do know how to beat them. But I go Galway there. Dublin Kildare.
Oh. I hope Kildare, I say Dublin.
Yeah, I think Dublin have just far too much firepower. But they're 2 games Limerick will have next year. Obviously, Roscommon and Galway are promoted, so Limerick won't have them. But Galway or Dublin and Kildare, one of them you'd imagine will be in Limerick, and we'll have a trip up to Leinster as well. So
we'll have the two. We'll have the 2 of them next year, hopefully.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on them. And then you have Derry and Donegal. We'll have Derry next year as well.
Yeah, I would sense that Derry might win this one, Jack.
See,
now the one thing that I would say about it that Donegal will surely have learned the lesson from losing the Ulster final to Cavan 2 years ago.
You say surely, but this Donegal team, we've been talking up, not we, but people have been talking up since probably 15 or 16 that they have these players to win an All-Ireland, and one way or another every year it falls by the wayside. Now, again, they won't be out, but Cavan was the one. I think Donegal will win. I think their experience will take them over the line. It's the first Munster final for Derry, I think, since 2009, which is even longer than Limerick's wait for a Munster final. It's mad to think that Limerick.
Yeah, I think that's going to feed into it. And there seems to be a freshness about Derry. And I saw him on television there on one or two of the games, and I was hugely impressed with him. And the manager has Rory Gallagher has done a fantastic job up there. Has done a fantastic job wherever he's gone. And I think there's something about Derry, Jack. I'm favouring Derry.
Yeah, I'm going to go to Donegal there. I think it's mad that Limerick and Derry was a Division 4 fixture in 2018. It was a Division 3 fixture in 2020. And here you have both of them could be potential provincial champions. And then we'll go into the qualifiers where we go back to Limerick and Kerry.
Jack, it's very, very good for the game.
Brilliant.
Because it proves that there's a pathway there for everybody. If they get their house in order, what can
Rory
be
Gallagher
done?
and Billy Lee leading by example.
Yes, absolutely. Rory Gallagher and particularly our Billy Lee take a bow,
Yeah. The qualifiers then next week, because as I say, we probably won't have much time to look into them. Armagh and Tyrone, the All-Ireland champions versus the up-and-coming Armagh. Toss of a coin?
It's a toss of a coin, I suppose. Home venue helps Armagh. I suppose Tyrone are All-Ireland champions. They won't want to relinquish their crown. I am going with Tyrone.
Will they play Rory Canavan?
Good question.
Yeah, I find it very hard to think that the All-Ireland champions will be knocked out in the first round of the qualifiers. But I do have this inkling for Armagh. If Armagh can get it right, they definitely have the capability of beating them. But I'll go with Armagh. I'll go outside there. You have Cork and Louth.
This is a difficult one,
They're all difficult, aren't they?
This is a difficult one because Cork football is not in a good place at the minute.
No.
They've suffered a very, very heavy defeat to Kerry in the Munster Football semi-final. They had to rely on a last day victory over Offaly in the league to survive in Division 2. Now, it's a very, very interesting game, actually, Jack, in that it's only the third ever championship meeting between Cork and Louth. Third championship ever. The first was in 1957, Jack, when Louth won it by 2 points, 1-9 to 1-7. And Louth were captained by a man that became very, very famous on the music scene in Ireland subsequently, Dermot O'Brien and the Merry Ploughboy. Did you ever hear of him, Jack?
No, not a notion.
I'm not surprised that you're biting your fingers when you hear that kind of stuff. But Dermot O'Brien went on to be huge here in Ireland as country western type Irish folk singer and part of the big show band era. But he captained out in 57. Now they met again in 2003, I think, in the quarter final or some round of the qualifiers, and Cork won it by 16 points to 14. So there's only been 2 points in it in both games. But look, that's not going to play at all into it's on Saturday week in Páirc Uí Chaoimh at 2:00. there's a Mickey Hart factor here.
Yeah. And they're also Division 3 champions, like.
Louth are coming from they're coming from a better place than Cork. Cork are in a difficult situation for the reasons that I told you. But Louth have been crowned Division 3 champions. I think it's going to be very, very tight. I'm reluctantly giving a vote to Cork to win it. But very, very reluctant now. And they're dogged by injuries. Kevin Flahaven, Brian Harnett are the latest two out. And, I'm reluctantly going for Cork, but oh, God almighty, Jack, only barely.
Yeah, I'll side with you there. Clare and Meath.
I'm going for Meath.
I'd go for Clare there now. I think they'll have enough to beat Meath. They've had longer to recover from the loss to Limerick, and as well, they'll see how far Limerick have gone. And think we were a few weeks of ball away. Meath, like losing to Dublin by however many points they lost by, that'll bring their confidence down. I think in a different day we Meath, but I'm going to go Clare in that one. And then the other tie is
Wicklow and Offaly.
No, Monaghan and Mayo.
Oh, sorry, Monaghan and Mayo. Sorry, I'm getting mixed up between the whole lot of them. Wicklow and Offaly is in the Tailteann Cup.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Before
our Mayo.
Before you get into that there, Matt, notice how every game I'm saying now you're very slow to say. It shows already, now the results might go different, that this is the way forward, the splitting the Tailteann Cup and the All-Ireland, that there's nothing between these teams.
Of course it is. And that, the days of having competitions, Jack, where a number of teams are genuine no-hopers, and are only whipping boys, that day is over.
Yeah.
That day is, that day is over. Mayo, I suppose Mayo's record in through the backdoor route, through the qualifiers route, is simply phenomenal. I'm going for them to get over Monaghan, especially seeing it's on in Castlebar,
Pulling out of the bag again. Yeah, this Mayo team, like, if they didn't come up against the best team of all time, they'd have 3 or 4 All-Irelands at least, so that's hard to take, I know. But I fancy Monaghan. I just think they have better scoring. I think Tommy Conroy is a huge absence for Mayo.
Oh, huge, absolutely. But, I know they have Jack McCann and Conor McManus and all these fellas. But, I still think Monaghan have them. But I still think Mayo and Castlebar, they will refocus. And, I think they'll get over this one anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of good games to look forward to. And obviously then, the big one this weekend, Matt, Limerick and Kerry.
But look, Jack, we have to go with the flow and say that Kerry are going to win.
Yeah, they're really favourites for a reason.
I'm very, very hopeful that Limerick can cause an upset.
Yeah, you have to put into context that if Limerick beat Kerry, you'd say that's one of the biggest shocks we've seen in a long, long time, if the biggest of all time. Yeah. But those records are there to be broken.
They're there to be broken, and it's 15 against 15 once they cross the white line, and once Mr. whatever his name from Monaghan throws in the ball, anything can happen.
Anything can happen. And look, this Limerick team has caused upsets before. They've come from nowhere. At the worst, it'll be a good gauge of where they are, as you said, as they get ready for Division 2. It's probably bonus territory. It's a great day out for the Limerick fans. You'd encourage people to go down to Killarney if they can. It's one you wouldn't want to miss, because, if they do the job, you'll always be able to say I was there when Limerick beat Kerry and bridged a 126-year gap. But yeah, look, you have to say Kerry are favourites. We've green.
It certainly will be. Where were you?
Yeah, please got it to be a case of where were you when I was there, and then I saw Liverpool beat Real Madrid in the Champions League final.
Yeah.
And I saw Matt O'Callaghan shave off his mustache that evening.
You said we were talking that we weren't talking football some time ago, Jack, in this podcast, and I'm taking you at your word.
You'll have a hard time keeping them quiet in Ballylanders if Limerick are after winning the Munster Championship, Matt, on Saturday evening.
Oh, I will, but I don't mind.
You'll have a hard time keeping yourself in check as well.
I will.
You'll be giving jibes to Tomás O'Shea.
Yes.
But yeah, look, it should be a good weekend. As Billy Lee said, it's a good week for football. John, there's a nice bit of buzz around there. Talking to the few of the players, like John, they are looking forward to it. It's pretty much a free hit. Obviously, you're going to finals to win. That's what you do. But as I said, they're written off, and they've shown before that writing off the Limerick team is not a good way to go about things. And you'd hope if the opportunity presents itself that they can take it. You know, you don't want to have a case of what ifs and things like that. But yeah, I'm kind of getting in the mood for it now. It's just before 12 on Friday afternoon. It's just over 24 hours away before the final. We spoke a bit about the leagues. There's hurling leagues and everything. We'll get into them and more. We're on 80 minutes now, so we will call it a day now. Obviously, the Camogie are playing again this weekend. The senior team are in Nolan Park at 4 o'clock on Saturday. The junior team are in Roscommon at 5. The best wishes to both those teams. But you have to say that the football is taking centre stage, and rightfully so. Can Limerick end a 126-year gap? We certainly hope so. Back in 1896, Matt, it was 4-1 to Limerick. You'd take that, wouldn't you?
I would. I wasn't around, Jack, but I would.
I was away that day myself as well. If you could keep Clifford and Shawnee Shane them to 1 point now, you're doing well. But hopefully a similar result with Limerick. Look, the very best of luck to Billy and the team. They were very good on Monday night at a press conference. There was a load of them there, very good with their time, and very proactive in organising that and everything. And look, they were great speakers. They're a brilliant bunch of players. They've given us many great days out so far. Hopefully there'll be a lot of green there on Saturday. I presume Limerick will be wearing white, Matt? White against blue? Probably,
yeah.
So if you have your blue jersey, throw it on. Or sorry, if you have your white jersey,
white,
sorry. I was thinking of the old blue, and if you have your white jersey, wear it. But sure, wear your green, get colourful, make noise, and drive it on is kind of the message we've been hearing from players, and even Conor said it as well.
Jack, there is no more familiar sight in the GAA for the last few years than the green of Limerick.
Yeah, it's a
and
nice
long may it continue.
Yeah, so again, best wishes to Billy and the team. Hoping for the win, hoping for a performance, hoping for a good day all round. Best luck to you, Matt, as well, and everyone involved for Shay, for Dave. Look, a brilliant cause. Hopefully, you can raise as much money as you can for a great cause, and you can have a good evening. Best luck to the Camogie team. There's leagues on and everything. So yeah, hopefully next week we'll be chatting. We'll be looking forward to maybe completing a Munster double. Who knows? We'll definitely be looking back on one Munster final and looking forward to another. But for now, all the best to the footballers, and thank you, Matt.
You're welcome, Jack.
Impression again, we get out with what you put into. It's like a walk of life. If you're good enough, go out and get it, no more about it.
Not so much control in the centre of the field from Kilkenny as Richie Bennett sends it high and over the bar.
Your mother sends you down to the shop for a pound's worth of goods and she gives you 50 pence. You can't get the pound's worth of goods, can you?
Just about kept in. Oh, well done, Shawnee Buckley. To do that to Tomás O'Shea, he deserves to score from here. One of the highlights of the Sunday game.
Limerick went out there from the word go today. No more about it. They made all the running, that was it. Put the ball over the bar and the back of it, and that's it. No ifs, no buts.
Is there much time left? We have a couple of injuries. Here comes Kerry. Kerry leading the charge of the left brigade. 45 metres out. He's a chance to score. He's put it high.
There's no sympathy in this game for anybody.